Mr. President.
The Senator from California.
Mr. President, I ask that the quorum call be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I'm honored today to support the nomination of Judge Anthony Battaglia to the Southern District of California. I had the great privilege of recommending Judge Battaglia to President Obama to serve on the Southern District Court. He's widely respected in the San Diego legal community. He will make an excellent addition to the bench. I have a committee that's set up in all the various areas over California, and they recommended him to me, and I was proud to recommend him to the President. I do want to congratulate him and his family on this important day. Judge Battaglia was born and raised in San Diego. He's a graduate of the United States International University, now Alliant International University, and California Western School of Law in San Diego. He's practiced law for 35 years in San Diego, and for 19 years he was a private practitioner with a very strong record as a litigator. For the past 16 years, Judge Battaglia has served with distinction as a magistrate judge for the Southern District. He has a reputation as a judge's judge, which means that the judges believe he is very hardworking, thoughtful, and fair. Local lawyers praise him for being well prepared for hearings and for trials, and he's very diligent in moving cases forward. He's presided over 22 trials that have gone to verdict during his tenure on the bench. Equally important is Judge Battaglia's dedication to service outside of the courtroom. He's a past president of the National Federal Magistrate Judges Association. He's twice been selected by Chief Justices of the Supreme Court to serve on a national advisory committee that reviews criminal court rules. In short, Judge Battaglia's career stands out as a testament to his dedication and to his devotion to the law and to the legal community of San Diego, both inside and outside of the courtroom. So I close my comments here by congratulating the judge and his family on this momentous day, and I urge my colleagues in the Senate to vote to confirm this highly qualified nominee to the bench. I'm very grateful to the Judiciary Committee, who have twice voted him out of the committee, so we're very grateful for that. I also would just like to add a comment on another matter, which has to do with a bill that was passed here, the Boxer-Casey bill, and sent over to the House, a bill that would say if there were to be a shutdown of government, which I know nobody wants, but if there were to be one, that the members of Congress should not get their pay. They shouldn't get their pay, and they shouldn't get retroactive pay, because this is a very basic responsibility that we have to keep the government running, to make sure that Social Security recipients receive their checks on time and disabled veterans, and to make sure that Superfund sites are cleaned up and that the NIH keeps functioning so that they can find the cures to the diseases that plague our families. And, Mr. President, it's fair to say that the two parties have different views on how to approach the deficit. I would have to say that the party I'm proud to belong to, the Democratic Party, believes, and we showed it under the leadership of Bill Clinton, that we can balance the budget but not threaten job creation. We did it under Bill Clinton. We did it smartly. We did it wisely, and the millionaires paid their fair share, as opposed to some of the proposals in the H.R. 1 that came out of the House that at the minimum would cost, according to The Economist, 200,000 jobs, and we've heard estimates of 800,000 jobs. We can't afford to lose those many jobs, just as this economy is getting to the point where jobs are being created in decent numbers. So, yes, we need to trim the deficit, and yes, we have to make sure that we don't knock this economic recovery off track. And therefore, it's essential that the parties work together, because if we each stand in our camps, then we're never going to get anything done. So let's do this in a wise way. It's true that we had an election and that the House changed hands, but guess what? The Senate didn't, and the White House isn't up for election for 2 more years. So you can't go around saying there was an election and the election said that the Republicans get everything they want. That just doesn't make any sense. And having come back from that election, you know, I want to say it was about jobs. Jobs, jobs, jobs. My opponent, you know, essentially asked every morning, every noon, and every night, where are the jobs? And that was a fair question. And I said to her, and I said to my people in California, we're not creating jobs at a fast enough pace. We have to do better. So as I stand here, how could I ever betray what I said in the campaign and vote for a plan that would cut between 200,000 and 800,000 jobs, the Republican plan from the House? So we've got to get our act together here and meet somewhere in the middle. You know, if you look at the Republican plan, it was, I think it was $100 billion off of the president's budget. And our plan is about now $60 billion off of the president's budget. So we've met them more than halfway, Mr. President. Let's get this thing done. And I think if we get this done and we do it in a responsible way, yes, we'll get this deficit on the right path. But to hold out this idea that we're going to go after just 12% of the budget, the things that people really rely on, the roads and the bridges and the highways and education and cleaning up Superfund sites and the FBI and all the things that we rely on, to go after that one small part of the budget and decimate it the way H.R. 1 would do would be counterproductive. It's really a jobs killer that hurts the middle class, and we can't go that way. Having said all this, you know, I'm sure we're going to see a vote on H.R. 1. I'm pretty sure we're going to see a vote on H.R. 1, and I don't think it's going to get enough votes to pass. Then we'll take the proposal of the Democrats that Senator Biden has put forward and see what that does. If neither gets the requisite number of votes, we're going to have to keep talking. But we can't continue with these 2-week extensions. It's absolutely irresponsible. Imagine taking billions of dollars out of the federal budget every 2 weeks. It's going to be tens of thousands of jobs in every one of our states that are lost. So in summing up, I hope that the Speaker of the House over there will take up our bill quickly, make sure that, you know, members of Congress aren't treated any better than anybody else, and we hopefully avert a shutdown. But if there is one, we're treated like every other federal employee, no budget, no pay. And I am, again, grateful, very grateful to the Judiciary Committee for giving us the opportunity to vote for Anthony Battaglia, who's going to make a great judge for the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of California. Thank you very much. I yield the floor.
The Senator from Iowa.
Yeah. Today, we continue our efforts to lessen the burden of our overworked courts. We are, before the evening's out, going to confirm 3 more judicial nominees. 2 of the 3 nominees we will vote on are for seats designated as judicial emergencies. With our actions today, it is only, and we're only 22 days that the Senate's been in session this year, the Senate has confirmed 10 nominees. With these votes tonight, we will have confirmed 19% of President Obama's judicial nominees submitted in this Congress. This pace far exceeds the progress made at this point in the 108th Congress, which was the beginning of the 3rd year of President Bush's presidency. At this point, the 108th Congress had confirmed only 4 of 48 nominations sent to the Senate, about 8% confirmation rate. Our fast pace on the floor is matched by our rapid pace in committee. We held our 3rd nominations hearing this past Wednesday. We have now heard from 13 judicial nominees and have reported 16 favorably. Our work in the committee and on the floor indicates that a cooperative effort between me, the chairman of the committee, and our leadership, it is an indication of the progress that can be made when the President nominates consensus nominees. We will continue in our efforts, but again, I would remind everyone that while we in the Senate are doing our part, the administration must also be engaged in this process. So I would note that 24 of the 41 vacant seats deemed to be judicial emergencies yet have no nominee. Of the additional 54 vacancies, 28 have no nominee. So I am very perplexed as to why the President would ignore these pending vacancies and instead spend time and resources to send up a nomination for a seat that will not be vacant for some time. I refer to the President's nomination February the 16th of Scott Cobdell to be U.S. District Judge for the District of Wyoming. This seat will not be vacant until July 24th, 2011, when the current judge will retire. I do not understand the administration's priorities when it comes to judicial nominations. I believe instead of focusing on nominations for future vacancies, I would hope the administration would use some common sense and direct its efforts towards nominating individuals for seats which are at least currently vacant. With regard to the nominees on whom we will vote this evening, let me say a few words about each. Judge Joseph Bhatia is nominated to be a United States District Judge for the Southern District of California. He presently serves in that district as United States Magistrate Judge. He was first appointed to that position in 1993. In addition to serving as Magistrate Judge, this nominee has served on the Judicial Conference of the United States Advisory Committee on Rules of Criminal Procedure, on the Ninth Circuit Executive Board of Magistrate Judges, and as a Magistrate Judge Observer on the Judicial Council of the Ninth Circuit. In 2009, this nominee was appointed by Chief Justice Roberts as Magistrate Judge Observer to the Judicial Conference of the U.S. This nominee received his B.A. from United States International University and his J.D. from California Western School of Law, spent almost 2 decades working in private practice, and also acted as an arbitrator for the San Diego Superior Court, serving on many panels. The American Bar Association Standing Committee on the Federal Bureaucracy, Standing Committee on the Federal Judiciary unanimously rated him well qualified. This evening we will also vote on 2 nominations for Central District, Illinois. Both of these vacancies are considered judicial emergencies. Judge Shadig received his B.S. from Bradley University and his J.D. from John Marshall Law School. Upon admission to the Illinois Bar, Judge Shadig opened his own law practice. He maintained his practice until 2001, when he was appointed by the Illinois Supreme Court to fill a vacancy for the 10th Judicial Circuit. He was elected to the full term in 2002 and re-elected 2008. While in private practice, he served as a part-time public defender for the Peoria County Public Defender's Office. He also served as an assistant attorney general for the state of Illinois. He was appointed by Governor Jim Edgar to serve as a commissioner for the Court of Claims in Illinois. The American Bar Association Standing Committee on the Federal Judiciary rated Judge Shadig as qualified by a substantial majority, while a minority rated him well qualified. Also nominated to a judicial emergency vacancy for the Central District of Illinois is Judge Sue E. Myerscough. Judge Myerscough received her B.A. with honors from Southern Illinois University and her J.D. from Southern Illinois School of Law. Upon graduation from law school, she served as law clerk to Harold A. Baker, the U.S. District Court for Central District of Illinois. The nominee was in private practice for approximately 6 years before being elected as an Associate Circuit Court Judge for the 7th Judicial Circuit, Illinois. The nominee later became a circuit judge for the 7th Circuit in 1998. She was elected as an appellate court justice of the Illinois Appellate Court 4th District. The American Bar Association Standing Committee on the Federal Judiciary unanimously rated this nominee as qualified. I congratulate all three nominees and wish them well in their public service. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
The senator from Minnesota.
Mr. President, I ask to speak as if in morning business.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I first wanted to alert senators that we will most likely be voting somewhere around 5:30. We're still working out an agreement about yielding back time, but I thought people would like to know that. The other thing I'd like to note is to first urge my colleagues to confirm the judges before us tonight. And then I'd also like to briefly say a few words about the third vote that we're going to be taking in this sequence. In just a few moments, Mr. President, the Senate will take another important step towards passing the America Invents Act. This bipartisan bill will go a long way in ensuring our country remains the world leader in entrepreneurship, research and development, and of course, innovation. Over the course of last week, every senator had an opportunity to come to the floor and weigh in on this bill with amendments. We made a lot of progress, and as a result, I'm pleased to say that we have a bill that is even better than the one we started with, a truly bipartisan product which will bring our patent system into the 21st century. If passed, this legislation will make the first comprehensive set of reforms to our nation's patent process in almost 60 years. 60 years. A lot has changed since then. The America Invents Act will create a legal framework that reflects current technologies and a climate in which innovation can flourish. In doing so, it will unleash the power of our nation's single most precious resource, the ingenuity of our people. And I want to point out that it will do it without adding a penny to our deficit. An improved patent process, Mr. President, will spark the kind of job creation and business growth that our economy needs right now. I know that you know that in Delaware, and we certainly know it in Minnesota. Those aren't Democratic priorities, the priorities of competitiveness and innovation, and they're not Republican priorities. They are American priorities. And I urge all senators to support the motion so we can move forward with this important legislation. And I want to thank Senator Grassley for all his work on this bill, and Senator Leahy as well, and the rest of the Judiciary Committee. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor, and we will soon update on whether or not we can yield back the time to start the votes at 5:30. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
The senator from Iowa.
We're prepared to yield back the balance of time on this side.
Okay. Mr. President, I note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
Mr. President,
The senator from Minnesota.
Mr. President, I ask that the quorum call be suspended.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that all remaining time on both sides be yielded back.
Without objection. Under the previous order, the nomination of Sue E. Myerscough to be United States District Judge. We need to call yes, nays, yes.
Mr. President, we ask that the yeas and nays be ordered.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The question is on the nomination of James E. Shattuck to be the United States District Court Judge. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka, Mr. Alexander, Ms. Ayotte, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Baucus, Mr. Begich, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Bingaman, Mr. Blumenthal, Mr. Blunt, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Boxer, Mr. Brown of Massachusetts, Mr. Brown of Ohio, Mr. Burr, Ms. Cantwell, Mr. Cardin, Mr. Carper, Mr. Casey, Mr. Chambliss, Mr. Coates, Mr. Coburn, Mr. Cochran, Ms. Collins, Mr. Conrad, Mr. Coons. Mr. Corker, Mr. Cornyn, Mr. Crapo, Mr. DeMint, Mr. Durbin, Mr. Ensign, Mr. Enzi, Mrs. Feinstein, Mr. Franken, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mrs. Hagan, Mr. Harkin, Mr. Hatch, Mr. Hoven, Mrs. Hutchison, Mr. Inhofe, Mr. Inoue, Mr. Isaacson, Mr. Johans, Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin, Mr. Johnson of South Dakota, Mr. Kerry, Mr. Kirk, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Cole, Mr. Kyle, Ms. Landrieu, Mr. Lautenberg, Mr. Leahy, Mr. Lee. Mr. Levin, Mr. Lieberman, Mr. Lugar, Mr. Manchin, Mr. McCain, Mrs. McCaskill, Mr. McConnell, Mr. Menendez, Mr. Merkley, Ms. Mikulski, Mr. Moran, Ms. Murkowski, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Nelson of Nebraska, Mr. Nelson of Florida, Mr. Paul, Mr. Portman, Mr. Pryor, Mr. Reed of Rhode Island, Mr. Reed of Nevada, Mr. Risch. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Rockefeller. Mr. Rubio. Mr. Sanders. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Sessions. Mrs. Shaheen. Mr. Shelby.
Hey, John. Yes, sir.
Ms. Snow.
3 votes. What time's the earliest we get?
Ms. Stabenow.
You don't have to, once you vote on the
Mr.
last one, you
Tester.
can walk out, so I would say...
Mr. Thune.
This one's going to take a
Mr.
while.
Toomey. Mr.
6:50,
Udall of
6:20.
Colorado.
Yeah.
Mr. Udall of New Mexico. Mr. Vitter. Mr. Warner. Mr. Webb. Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wyden. Senators voting in the affirmative: Chambliss, Collins, Coons, Grassley, Johans, Kerry, Klobuchar, Levin, Lugar, Manchin, Reed of Rhode Island, and Whitehouse. No senator voted in the negative. Mr. Crapo? Mr. Crapo, aye. Mr. Burr? Mr. Burr, aye. Mr. Tester? Mr. Tester, aye. Mr. Vitter? Mr. Vitter, aye. Mr. Brown? Mr. Brown of Massachusetts, aye. Mr. Wicker? Mr. Wicker, aye. Mrs. McCaskill? Mrs. McCaskill, aye. Mr. Portman? Mr. Portman, aye. Mr. Graham. Mr. Graham, aye. Mr. Lieberman. Mr. Lieberman, aye. Mr. Cochran. Mr. Cochran, aye. Mr. Coburn. Mr. Coburn, aye. Mr. Webb. Mr. Webb, aye. Mr. Toomey. Mr. Toomey, aye. Mrs. Shaheen. Mrs. Shaheen, aye. Mr. Blunt. Mr. Blunt, aye. Mr. Inouye. Mr. Inouye, aye. Mr. Bingaman. Mr. Bingaman, aye. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, aye. Mr. Rubio. Mr. Rubio, aye. Mr. Udall. Mr. Udall of New Mexico, aye. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin, Aye. Mr. Moran? Mr. Moran? Aye. Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson of South Dakota? Aye. Mr. McCain? Mr. McCain? Aye. Mr. Sessions? Mr. Sessions? Aye. Mr. Blumenthal? Mr. Blumenthal? Aye. Ms. Ayotte? Ms. Ayotte? Aye. Mr. Roberts? Mr. Roberts? Aye. Mr. Kyle? Mr. Kyle? Aye. Mr. Cornyn? Mr. Cornyn? Aye. Mrs. Boxer? Mrs. Boxer? Aye. Mr. Franken? Mr. Franken? Aye. Mr. Coates? Mr. Coates? Aye. Mr. Brown? Mr. Brown of Ohio? Aye. Ms. Cantwell? Ms. Cantwell? Aye. Ms. Mikulski? Ms. Mikulski? Aye. Mr. Inhofe? Mr. Inhofe? Aye. Mr. Barrasso? Mr. Barrasso? Aye. Mr. Enzi? Mr. Enzi? Aye. Mr. Warner? Mr. Warner? Aye. Mr. Bozeman? Mr. Bozeman? Aye. Mr. Alexander? Mr. Alexander? Aye. Mr. Wyden? Mr. Wyden? Aye. Mr. Pryor? Mr. Pryor? Aye. Mr. Corker? Mr. Corker? Aye. Mrs. Gillibrand? Mrs. Gillibrand? Aye. Mr. Cardin? Mr. Cardin? Aye. Ms. Snow? Ms. Snow? Aye. Mr. Casey? Mr. Casey? Aye. Mr. Thune? Mr. Thune? Aye. Carper? Mr. Carper, aye. Mr. McConnell. Mr. McConnell, aye. Mr. Shelby. Mr. Shelby, aye. Mr. Akaka. Mr. Akaka, aye. Mrs. Feinstein. Mrs. Feinstein, aye. Mr. Harkins. Mr. Harkins, aye. Mrs. Hutchison. Mrs. Hutchison, aye. Mr. Menendez. Mr. Menendez, aye. Mr. Cole. Mr. Cole, aye. Mrs. Murray? Mrs. Murray? Aye. Mr. Baucus? Mr. Baucus? Aye. Mr. Begich? Mr. Begich? Aye. Mr. Nelson? Mr. Nelson of Nebraska? Aye. Ms. Stabenow? Ms. Stabenow? Aye. Mr. Nelson? Mr. Nelson of Florida? Aye. Mr. Durbin? Mr. Durbin? Aye. Mr. Udall? Mr. Udall of Colorado? Aye. Mr. Bennett? Mr. Bennett? Aye. Mr. Lautenberg? Mr. Lautenberg? Aye. Mr. Merkley? Mr. Merkley? Aye. Mr. Kirk? Mr. Kirk? Aye. Mr. Risch? Mr. Risch? Aye. Ms. Landrieu? Ms. Landrieu? Aye. Mr. Rockefeller? Mr. Rockefeller? Aye. Mr. Reed? Mr. Reed of Nevada? Aye. Mr. Schumer? Mr. Schumer, aye.
Are there any senators wishing to vote or to change their vote? The Senate will be in order. There being none on this vote, the yeas are 89, the nays are 0. The nomination of James E. Shattuck to be United States District Court Judge is confirmed. The question is on the nomination of Anthony J. Battaglia to be United States District Court Judge.
Mr. President,
The senator from Minnesota.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the next two votes be 10-minute votes.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered.
I ask for the yeas and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka, Mr. Alexander, Ms. Ayotte, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Baucus, Mr. Begich, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Bingaman, Mr. Blumenthal, Mr. Blunt, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Boxer, Mr. Brown of Massachusetts, Mr. Brown of Ohio, Mr. Burr, Ms. Cantwell, Mr. Cardin, Mr. Carper, Mr. Casey, Mr. Chambliss, Mr. Coates, Mr. Cochran, Ms. Collins, Mr. Conrad, Mr. Coons, Mr. Corker, Mr. Cornyn, Mr. Crapo, Mr. Dement, Mr. Durbin. Mr. Ensign. Mr. Enzi.
Yes is HR 1. Is an opposing cloture reads substitute.
Mrs. Feinstein.
Yeah, nothing to do with it. All right, your yes and yes, sir. I've been talking to Mike Laver and those guys made.
Mr. Franken. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mr. Graham. Mr. Grassley. Mrs. Hagan. Mr. Harkin. Mr. Hatch. Mr. Hoven. Mrs. Hutchison. Mr. Inhofe. Mr. Inouye. Mr. Isaacson. Mr. Johans. Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin. Mr. Johnson of South Dakota.
But I don't, but I should.
Mr. Kerry. Mr. Kirk. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Cole. Mr. Kyle. Ms. Landrieu. Mr. Lautenberg. Mr. Leahy. Mr. Lee. Mr. Levin. Mr. Lieberman. Mr. Lugar. Mr. Manchin. Mr. McCain. Mrs. McCaskill. Mr. McConnell. Mr. Menendez. Mr. Merkley. Ms. Mikulski. Mr. Moran. Mrs. Murkowski. Mrs. Murray. Mr. Nelson of Nebraska. Mr. Nelson of Florida. Mr. Paul. Mr. Portman. Mr. Pryor. Mr. Reed of Rhode Island. Mr. Reed of Nevada. Mr. Risch. Mr. Roberts, Mr. Rockefeller, Mr. Rubio, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Sessions, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Shelby, Ms. Snow, Ms. Stabenow, Mr. Tester, Mr. Thune, Mr. Toomey, Mr. Udall of Colorado. Mr. Udall of New Mexico. Mr. Vitter. Mr. Warner. Mr. Webb. Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wyden. Senators voting in the affirmative: Akaka, Alexander, Ayotte, Barrasso, Begich, Bennett, Bingaman, Bozeman, Boxer, Brown of Massachusetts, Brown of Ohio, Burr, Cantwell, Cardin, Carper, Casey, Coates, Coburn, Cochran, Collins, Coons, Corker, Cornyn, Crapo, DeMint, Enzi, Feinstein, Franken, Gillibrand, Graham, Grassley, Hutchison, Inhofe, Inouye, Johans, Johnson of Wisconsin, Johnson of South Dakota, Kirk, Klobuchar, Cole, Kyle, Landrieu, Lautenberg, Lee, Levin, Lieberman, Lugar, McCain, McCaskill, Menendez, Merkley, Mikulski, Moran, Murray, Nelson of Nebraska, Nelson of Florida, Hall, Portman, Fryer, Reed of Nevada, Roberts, Rockefeller, Rubio, Schumer, Sessions, Shaheen, Shelby, Snow, Stabenow, Tester, Toomey, Udall of Colorado, Udall of New Mexico, Vitter, Warner, Whitehouse, Wicker, Wyden. Mr. Blunt, aye. Mr. Baucus. Mr. Baucus, aye. Mr. Reed of Rhode Island. Mr. Reed of Rhode Island, aye. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blumenthal, aye. Mr. Manchin. Mr. Manchin, aye. Mr. Risch. Mr. Risch, aye. Mr. Thune. Mr. Thune, aye. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chambliss, aye.
I'm going to get McConnell to punch it in right here, too.
Mr. McConnell. Mr. McConnell, aye. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Durbin, aye. Mr. Harkin. Mr. Harkin, aye. Mr. Kerry. Mr. Kerry, aye.
Are there any senators present wishing to vote or change their vote? If not, the vote on that is 89 aye, no nays. The nomination is confirmed. Under the previous order, the motion to reconsider are considered made in block and laid upon the table in block. Under the previous order, the President will be immediately notified of the Senate's action, and the Senate will resume a legislative session. The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.